Grace and peace. This is Brother Sean with another clean read. This lesson is entitled The Revelation of Jannes and Jambres. Now be sure to watch this video all the way to the end to get the good full understanding of this important topic. 2 Timothy 3:8 reads, Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth, men of corrupt minds. Now, in order for us to get a full understanding of who Jannes and Jambres are, we have to get a read in full context. Now, not only are we going to expose who Jannes and Jambres are, but it's also going to provide a lot of important information for today's believers. It's going to give you warnings of false believers and leaders so that you can identify who these individuals are that oppose the truth. It's also going to expose the false prophecies that are linked to the false understanding of who Jannes and Jambres were. As well, it's going to provide you with some tips on self-examination so that you don't fall into the same trap as Jannes and Jambres did and meet the same fate that they did. 2 Timothy 3 verse 1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasures more than lovers of Jah, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. So we can see there is a long list of characteristics of these evil men, especially how they love pleasures more than they love Jah, and they have a form of godliness but deny the power and the authority of the Most High. It warns us and tells us that we should turn away from such people. Let's continue. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So we can see here that these men definitely take advantage of silly women who are laden with sins, but they're always learning and studying and going to the congregation and preaching and teaching, but they're never able to come to the knowledge of the truth nor obey it. This is why we have to be very careful in these times. Let's continue. Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds reprobate concerning the faith. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was. So we can see that something happened to Jannes and Jambres that made manifest to all that we shouldn't be like them. We read of these two men opposing Moses, and we see that it is done within the circle concerning the faith. This leads me to understand that these men in question were a part of the Israelite faith, but were evil and openly against Moses and Aaron, and most importantly, against the Most High. Looking at all the characteristics of these evil men, we can see that they learned and witnessed the truth, but fought against it, provoking the Almighty Jah. We look at 2 Timothy chapter 3, 2 through 7, we can see the unrighteous characteristics of people who know scriptural truths to an extent, but are against it. They are evil and self-centered. So let's get a quick look at this list. They're lovers of their own selves. That means they're self-centered, respecters of people. They're vain. They're covetous. That means they're envious, materialistic, lovers of money and praises of men. Boasters, braggers of self and the flesh. Proud, they're conceited and full of themselves. Blasphemers, they're evil speakers and they speak evil of truths. Disobedient to parents, there's no honor for order in the assembly nor in the home. Unthankful, very ungrateful. Unholy, they denounce holiness. Without natural affection, they have no true love. Truce breakers, they breakers of peace. False accusers, they misjudge and they lie for self-gain. Incontinent, they have no self-control and they are unrestrained. Fierce opposers of truth, that's what they are. Despisers of those that are good, they're envious and jealous. They are traitors, they turn against those that they were once one with. They're heady, they're ruthless, and they're prideful, and they're wanton. They're high-minded, which means they're arrogant and full of themselves. 18. Lovers of pleasure more than lovers of Jah. They're earthly and carnal-minded, having a form of righteousness but denying the power thereof. They're ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So this is what happens. Many people are just learning, and over years they still don't come to the knowledge of the truth because they have itchy ears. So with this long list here now, let's get a full understanding and move on. 2 Timothy 3:8 says, Now as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses. The key word here is withstood. Withstood is Strong's G436. It's Antistēmi. Antistēmi. The first definition is to set oneself against, to withstand, resist, oppose. To set against, to stand against. So withstood means to stand against or to set oneself against something or to oppose. So when we look at the basic understanding and definition of this word withstand, it means to resist and oppose, right? To be against, to stand against that way. Withstood, withstanding, to strive or contend against. So obviously we know what withstood means. Now it's falsely understood worldwide for centuries that these were Egyptian magicians, sorcerers, or scribes that withstood Moses in Egypt before Pharaoh. Many people teach that, and for the most part, I would say everybody teaches these things. Now let's get a quick understanding of what they teach.
Jannes and Jambres, two mysterious individuals whose roles in biblical history are often overlooked. The story begins with a glimpse into the background and origins of Jannes and Jambres. As Moses confronted Pharaoh, demanding the release of Israel, Jannes and Jambres emerged as formidable adversaries. Their witchcraft allowed them to replicate some of Moses' miracles, creating an eerie rivalry. Despite their demonic prowess, Jannes and Jambres faced an insurmountable truth. Their abilities paled in comparison to the power of the Almighty. This revelation triggered a profound internal struggle. In their determination to defy God's will, Jannes and Jambres stubbornly resisted the signs and wonders sent through Moses. Their rebellion led them down a treacherous path. The pivotal moment arrived as Moses' staff transformed into a serpent, an act beyond the realm of human magic. Jannes and Jambres did the same thing, but Moses' serpent ate theirs.
Now that you got that understanding, if you go search the internet yourself, you'll see many falsehoods, the truth about the magicians that Moses faced, the Egyptian magicians, right? The Egyptian magicians dealing with end-time prophecies as well. Watch out for Jannes and Jambres dealing with them coming in the future. Another one exposing the folly of Jannes and Jambres, of course showing them as Egyptian priests or sorcerers. The spirit of Jannes and Jambres, the last days with Timothy, Jannes and Jambres, and the magicians who try to take on Moses. So everybody and their grandmother is saying that these two Egyptians were the ones who opposed Moses. Some are dealing with the witchcraft of Jannes and Jambres. There's even a book called the Apocryphon of Jannes and Jambres where they're written in a book and many people believe it's true. And for the most part, like I said, everybody agrees on this concept. Now, Jannes and Jambres are mentioned only once in the scriptures by the Apostle Paul in 2 Timothy 3:8. And although they are not identified by name in the Old Testament, rabbinic tradition holds that Jannes and Jambres were among the magicians who opposed Moses and Aaron at the time of the Exodus. Jannes and Jambres obviously had miraculous powers, but unlike Moses and Aaron, who were empowered by God, the Pharaoh's magicians were satanic. Now, many people feel the tradition is valid, otherwise Paul, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, would have not written about them in the New Testament. This is all false information. When we look at Strong's G2389 for Jannes, we get this understanding. It's of Egyptian origin. It says that he and Jambres were two Egyptian magicians who in the presence of Pharaoh imitated the miracles of Aaron in order to destroy his influence with the king. It also goes on to say the author of this epistle derived their names from the tradition of the Talmudists and the rabbins. Again, I want to say all this information is false, and the name Jannes shouldn't even be there. Let's look at Jambres as well in the Strongs. Again, it's of Egyptian origin, not of Hebrew origin, they say, but Egyptian origin. And it means foamy healer. And it says the same thing as it does with Jannes. He and Jannes were two Egyptian magicians who, in the presence of Pharaoh, imitated the miracles of Aaron in order to destroy his influence with the king. The author of the epistle derived their names from the tradition of the Talmudists and the rabbins. So as you can see, anytime you have anything referring to the Talmud or traditions of rabbis, you can bet your bottom dollar that it is false. When we go to some information on the internet, they also have this information about Jannes and Jambres being Egyptian magicians. It reads, "These are the names of two magicians in ancient Egypt who withstood Moses before Pharaoh. And this is the only place where the names occur in the New Testament, and they are not mentioned in the Old Testament at all. In Exodus 7:11 and 22, Egyptian magicians are spoken of who were called upon by Pharaoh to oppose Moses and Aaron. It reads, Then Pharaoh also called for the wise men and the sorcerers, and they also, the magicians of Egypt, did in like manner with their enchantments." Also, if you watch the movie The Ten Commandments, in there as well, they try to make it seem like it was two men that opposed Moses and Aaron. But this is not true. 10 reads, "And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as Jah had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents, but Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods." Now the point of me bringing this out here is that there weren't just two magicians or sorcerers there. There was a group of wise men and sorcerers, and it says that every man cast down his rod. That definitely makes us come to an understanding that there was more than two. But some people will say they were two amongst a group. However, it's good to know that this was a group of men and not just two.
Jannes and Jambres are not Egyptian names. Okay, let's just get that right out there. These are not Egyptian names. There's no reference to them in the Bible anywhere else. These are taken from Jewish legend, basically Jewish Apocryphon, an idealization in Hebrew lore. And I'm using lore here very, very loosely, not to mean that it's fiction, but that it's part of Hebrew culture. To assign names to people, even if you don't know for sure that that's their names. Christian lore, which is an extension of Hebrew lore, does the same thing. They assign 3 names to the 3 wise men. Well, we don't know if there was just 3 wise men. We know there's 3 gifts. Because there's 3 gifts, there's the assumption that 1 wise man per gift. It's not necessarily a true assumption. In the same way, Jewish lore has assigned names to those Egyptian priests, knowing that it's not necessarily the actual names of those priests.
It's going to be evident in this lesson that Jannes and Jambres were not Egyptian magicians, nor Egyptian at all. The Egyptians were never a part of the faith, nor the people of Jah, Israel. In context, these 2 men were in and of the faith and knew the truth, but they were evil-minded and opposed Moses, Aaron, and Jah. The point I want to make is that these names were inserted, substituted, replaced, and shuffled to formulate a false doctrine, a false prophecy, and also to give forth a false identity. Now, Jannes and Jambres should be identified as Dathan and Abiram. These were 2 rebellious Israelites from the tribe of Reuben, and I want to give a quick read. Dathan, Abiram, and On are from the tribe of Reuben. Korah is from the tribe of Levi. We read of these 4 men along with 250 princes of the 12 tribes of Jacob contending with Moses and Aaron. They were famous and highly respected men amongst the 12 tribes. Indeed, that's what the word renown means. I'll focus here on their uprising against Moses and the fact that they were within the circle of truth. Let's get a read. Numbers 16, verse 1. Now Korah, the son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Peleth, sons of Reuben, took men. And they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, 250 princes of the assembly, famous in the congregation, men of renown. So again, you see the focus here on these 4 men. Dathan and Abiram are mentioned also, but you can see that they rose up before Moses. They went against him, and these men were famous and men of renown. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, You take too much upon you, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jah is among them. Wherefore then lift you up yourselves above the congregation of Jah? So right off the bat here, you can see how these men are opposing the Most High. They're saying that he's taking too much upon himself, him and Aaron, and that they're lifting themselves up above the congregation. However, we know this is not true at all, because the Most High chose Moses to be his servant. And when Moses heard it, he fell upon his face, and he spake unto Korah and to all his company, saying, Even tomorrow Jah will show who are his and who is holy, and will cause him to come near unto him. Even him who he hath chosen will he cause to come near unto him. So Moses again is telling them, hey, all right, if you want to prove this, then come tomorrow and let's get ready. Verse 16. This do, take you censers Korah and all his company, and put fire therein, and put incense in them before Jah tomorrow. And it shall be that that man whom Jah shall choose, he shall be holy. You take too much upon you, you sons of Levi. So you see how Moses here returns those exact words. When they said that he's taking too much upon him, he tells them, these Levites, that they're taking up too much upon themselves. And Moses said unto Korah, Hear, I pray you, you sons of Levi. Seemeth it but a small thing unto you, that the Holy One of Israel hath separated you from the congregation of Israel, to bring you near to himself, to do the service of the tabernacle of Jah, and to stand before the congregation to minister unto them? So he's telling them, is it a small thing that he's chosen you to do his work and to be his ministers? It seems like they wanted more. And he hath brought thee near to him, and all thy brethren, and the sons of Levi with thee, and seek ye the priesthood also? So when it says here, seek ye the priesthood, really they wanted the headship, because we know that they were priests, and we know that Aaron was the head of all the priests. And it seemed that these men were trying to take Moses and Aaron out. For which cause both thou and all thy company are gathered against Jah. And what is Aaron that you murmur against him? So this lets us know that they were gathering against Moses and Aaron, but ultimately they were gathering against Jah, because these were Jah's appointed servants. And Moses sent to call Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, which said, We will not come up. So they're resisting Moses. He's calling for them, and they're saying they're not going to come. And they say, Is it a small thing that thou hast brought us up out of a land that floweth with milk and honey, to kill us in the wilderness, except thou makest thyself altogether a prince over us? So you notice how these guys are getting very rude and cheeky. We call it feisty. They're saying, is it a small thing? When Moses had said to them, is it a small thing that he chose the Levites to minister before Jah? So they're throwing the words right back at Moses. And they're saying that Moses is making himself a prince over them. But we know this is not true. Moreover, thou hast not brought us into a land that floweth with milk and honey, or given us inheritance of fields and vineyards. Wilt thou put out the eyes of these men? We will not come up. So again, we can see that these men are resisting Moses. They withstood him. They're opposing him and Aaron. And Moses was very wroth, and said unto Jah, Respect not thou their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, neither have I hurt one of them. So this really got Moses vexed. And Moses said unto Korah, Be thou and all thy company before Jah, thou and they and Aaron tomorrow, and take every man his censer, and put incense in them, and bring ye before Jah, every man his censer, 250 censers, thou also and Aaron, each of you his censer. So this is the test being put forth. Verse 18, and they took every man his censer, and put fire in them, and laid incense thereon, and stood at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation with Moses and Aaron. And Korah gathered all the congregation against them unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the glory of Jah appeared unto all the congregation. And Jah spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, separate yourselves from among this congregation, that I may consume them in a moment. So Jah wanted to kill all of them instantly right away because of their withstanding Moses and opposing Jah. And they fell upon their faces and said, O Jah, the Father of the spirits of all flesh, shall one man sin, and wilt thou be wroth with all the congregation? So Moses and Aaron are here appealing to Jah to have mercy. And Jah spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the congregation, saying, get you up from about the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. And Moses rose up and went unto Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. And he spake unto the congregation, saying, depart, I pray you, from the tents of these wicked men, and touch nothing of theirs, lest ye be consumed in all their sins. So Moses now was approaching Dathan and Abiram, calling them out, and telling everybody else to back off. So they got up from the tabernacle of Korah, Dathan and Abiram on every side, and Dathan and Abiram came out, and stood in the door of their tents, and their wives, and their sons, and their little children. So they all come out, opposing Moses same way, and they bring out their little children to probably try to find some type of mercy or comfort. But Jah was having none of it. And Moses said, hereby you shall know that Jah had sent me to do all these works, for I have not done them of mine own mind. You see, Jah gave Moses the Spirit. Not only did Moses wasn't doing everything by his own power, but not even of his own mind. This is something that is great and wonderful in our eyes. If these men die the common death of all men, or if they be visited after the visitation of all men, then Jah hath not sent me. Wow. But if Jah make a new thing, and the earth open her mouth, and swallow them up, with all that appertain unto them, and they go down quick into the pit, then ye shall understand that these men have provoked Jah. So the judgment has been sent out. And it came to pass, as he had made an end of speaking all these words, that the ground clave asunder that was under them, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed them up, and their houses, and all the men that appertained unto Korah, and all their goods, cattle and all. They and all that appertained to them went down alive into the pit, and the earth closed upon them, and they perished from among the congregation. Wow. And not only that they just went down into the pit, but the pit actually closed back up on them, like the earth physically swallowed them up. Wow, Jah's power is great and mighty. And all Israel that were round about them fled at the cry of them, for they said, lest the earth swallow us up also. And there came out fire from Jah, and consumed the 250 men that offered incense. But on the morrow, all the congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and against Aaron, saying, you have killed the people of Jah. Now we have to take a pause here, because they just saw what happened, how 250 men got burnt up by fire. The earth swallowed up Dathan and Abiram's entire family, cattle, home, and everything. And then the Israelites turn around in their rebellion and say that they have killed the people of Jah. This is quite disturbing at the same time. And it came to pass, when the congregation was gathered against Moses and against Aaron, that they looked toward the tabernacle of the congregation, and behold, the cloud covered it, and the glory of Jah appeared. Now I'm not going to go into the full reading of what happens after that, but we know that Jah sends out a plague, and once again Moses and Aaron have to come to Israel's rescue. But let's look at this list again, 2 Timothy chapter 3, and line up these evil qualities found in their relation to Dathan and Abiram, and not Egyptian priests. Again, they were lovers of their own selves. So these two were self-serving, and they were carnal-minded. They were covetous. They coveted Moses and Aaron's position. Psalms 106:16 says, they envied Moses also in the camp, and Aaron the saint of Jah. This is what they do. They envied Moses, and they coveted their positions. They boasted. Remember when they said, all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and Jah is among them. I mean, they bragged and boasted and said, we're all holy, and Jah's among them. But that was far from the truth. Their uprising was due to evil pride. They blasphemed against Jah's authority. They disrespected their leaders, whom were akin to their parents, and disrespected their father, who was Jah. They never appreciated Moses saving them from slavery. They even said that he brought them out to kill them. Jah showed that they were unholy by killing them. He made the earth swallow them up, and even the princes died by fire. So they were unholy. They were truce breakers. They broke the covenant to serve Jah that Jah made with them in the wilderness. They falsely accused Moses and Aaron of lifting themselves up above the congregation, so they're false accusers. They were fierce. Their hostility and disagreements against Jah's men are examples of their boldness and fierceness. They despised Moses and Aaron's Jah-given authority. They are traitors against Jah and his holy people. They were rude and oppositional. Remember when they said, we will not come up. They were high-minded. They thought high of themselves as being holy. They wanted the self-pleasing fame of men being holy as their pleasure, as opposed to pleasing Jah in holiness. So they were lovers of pleasures more than lovers of Jah. They loved the praises of men. And they had a form of godliness but denied the power thereof. See, they appeared righteous to others, but they denied Moses, Aaron, and ultimately Jah's authority. They denied that great power. Now here's some other supporting verses about these rebels, including Korah. Sirach 45, verse 18. Strangers conspired together against him and maligned him in the wilderness, even the men that were of Dathan and Abiram side, and the congregation of Kor, with fury and wrath. So we can see that Abiram is also spelled here with Abiram. But this is from the Apocrypha here, and we can see that they conspired against Moses. This Jah saw, and it displeased him, and in his wrathful indignation were they consumed. He did wonders upon them to consume them with the fiery flame. Jude chapter 1 verse 11. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, and ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Korah, or Kor. This again is the Korah that we're reading of. So these are just other supporting verses about these rebels. So now when we look at this, again, 2 Timothy 3:8, we can put in the correct names. Now as Dathan and Abiram withstood Moses. It's not supposed to be Jannes and Jambres, but Dathan and Abiram. Numbers 16:2, it read, and they rose up before Moses with certain of the children of Israel, and they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. Numbers 26, it says, this is that Dathan and Abiram which were famous in the congregation, which strove against Moses and against Aaron in the company of Korah, when they strove against Jah. Psalms 106:16 reads, they envied Moses also in the camp, and Aaron, the saint of Jah. The earth opened and swallowed up Dathan and covered the company of Abiram. This was manifest to all people in Israel at that time. And a fire was kindled in their company. The flame burned up the wicked. That's right, all 250 false priests were burned up. Wow. I hope you can get some great understanding here, knowing that it was Dathan and Abiram that withstood Moses, not these Egyptian priests or anything. And yes, Egyptian priests, they could have withstood him by doing these little powers, but they do not fit the context of 2 Timothy chapter 3, because the Egyptians are not a part of Jah's people. They were never a part of the faith at all. They are of the Egyptian heathenistic, paganistic faith that way. Now, finally, as we get here, I want to show you that there's a little bit of wordplay and letter shuffling. This lets me know that the translators, who are the ones who falsified this information here, they kind of had an understanding and knowing these things. So let's look at Strong's G2387 again, where it says Jambres, and it spells it with an I-A-M-B-R-E-S. Let's take the letters from Jambre, and never mind that S. I'm going to leave out this Greek S, because that's what the Greeks always put at the end of names, the letter S, and shuffle them around. And when we look at King James Version, in the 1611 original version, it reads, "Now as Jannes, with the I, and Jambres, with the I, withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth." So we can see here, this spelling here. And what I noticed that is when you get I-A-M-B-R-E, Iambre, dealing with the Jambres, you shuffle the letters and you get A, B, I, R, E, M, Abiram. And that's the same as the name of Abiram. Just to play with vowels, whether it's an E or an A, it doesn't matter. So with this here, I mean, all the other information, I didn't even need this piece of information, but this here really clarifies to me that the translators knew what they were doing, and this was done purposely. So this is how this verse should read correctly. 2 Timothy 3:8. "Now as Dathan and Abiram withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds, reprobate concerning the faith. But they shall proceed no further, for their folly shall be manifest unto all men, as theirs also was." Praise Jah. I hope you got some understanding of who Jannes and Jambres were. They were Dathan and Abiram. As always, all praise and glory to Jah, our Father, and His Son, Jahoshua the Messiah, who died for our sins that we may have eternal life. Also known as Yahoshua, Yahawashi, Yahusha, Yahshua, Yashaya, Yeshua, Joshua, Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah, HaMashiach, the Christ. One love, and praise Jah.